The first rule in grip sport is you tell everyone about grip sport.
Crushing, pinch grip, thick bar, wrists.
If the best guy in the world can't lift 100 pounds on it, I don't give a shit about it.
All right, welcome back to another episode of the Grip Show, everybody. I have Andrew and Rachel with me here, and going to get into a recap and a little bit of their background. And yeah, so just welcome to the show. First off, that's the first thing I'll say. We'll just start with that. So
thanks, Zach.
Thank you.
Happy to be here.
You. It's a pleasure.
Yep, no problem. So definitely the scene up in Canada. I mean, with Eric doing a lot of stuff. I mean, for I don't know how long Eric's really been doing it, 15 years at least, probably, hosting, promoting stuff. There's been sort of a pretty good base already established. And there's a lot of other promoters too. So I'm not like cutting anyone else out by just saying Eric, but Eric has been kind of a main staple for grip sport, especially in Canada. And, but yeah, there's tons of other people that have run competitions. Brad Provic, I know like Al Block ran something. I could go down the list, and name different things. But yeah, we're going to get into the competition that you guys hosted, but I feel like the Canada grip scene has really, really picked up lately, even more so. Like it already had like was pretty well off. And now I feel like with like Nemesis Grips, making this stuff more accessible, like there's more equipment going to the hands of the lifters up there. There's new things being contested. There's, like we kind of mentioned before the recording, there's kind of this, flooding of climbers jumping in, or at least, these things are getting put in front of them and they're testing their grip out, and they're always having good carryover. So, yeah, I guess we could just start with kind of, before we get into all the competition details, kind of how you guys got to be where you're at, pre-hosting the competition, and just kind of your place, like how you ended up where you are, or what kind of got you in the door. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we're going to go back to Eric. We got started in grip because he hosted a comp at one of our local climbing gyms, which we checked out. Super fun. He knows how to host a comp. But, when I looked around, I thought, there could be a few more women, a few more small people. I mean, I had a whole bunch of girlfriends that would have been, my weight class, and they'd be into grip because they were into climbing. And that sort of started the ball rolling on us hosting our Feather Crush series, which is a women's lifting event. And we did that maybe 3 comps a year for a little while before we got into this. And at that point, Eric had come out to some of the comps because, I think he was interested in how we were getting all these women out, and obviously wanted some of them to come out to his events too. And that sort of bled into, I don't want to take credit for the big explosion of activity in Ottawa, but I think it did bleed into more climbers and more women joining, especially when you talk about big comps like King Kong, where there are already lots of men. Having all those extra women competing at the Ottawa locations really, I think, made it stand out. And, it just feeds on itself. So once you get more women coming out, they bring their friends, they hear about it, they talk about it. Some of the boyfriends are jealous that they can't come out to the Feather Crushes, so they eventually go to King Kong, and it sort of goes from there. So I think Eric reached out to Andrew last winter to host the GSI regionals for Central Canada, and that's really how it got started, eh?
Yeah. Just quickly on the Feather Crush. I think our record turnout for women, like in our basement, was around 20. So in one competition, we had 20, and of the 20, maybe like 16 of them were new athletes, right?
Yeah.
And it was a blast. We had music going. It was a potluck style for food. So throughout the whole day, people had brought like a food item, and we all shared, we all mingled. Eric came by as well to check it out, and gave some nice words of support to the athletes and welcomed people to the sport. And I think like he saw like what we were doing. We had the right formula to attract people to the sport. And the women was the primary focus because that was where the gap was. But regionals, this past regionals, is really the first time that both of us have hosted something beyond just the women, both the girls and the guys. And for the longest time, the guys here locally in Ottawa have have been jealous. Like, oh, when are you guys gonna host a comp for the boys? Why is it just the women? And okay, finally, this was the opportunity that we got, and yeah.
Yeah, so it was different because there were a lot more people. Getting 20 people out when it's all women, great accomplishment, but they're all going to fit in the basement and the competition isn't really going to run over time. But we had about 32 people come to regionals, and so it brings some more challenges logistically. So that was fun, and yeah, we're excited to get into the details of what we did differently, and how it went.
Okay. Yeah, no, that sounds good. And with just talking about like you getting 20 women's lifters in one spot, like in a local just area right there. Um, just for like I guess context to it, I don't have the last year's King Kong like results right up in front of me right now, but I do feel like there was at least like 240 something male competitors. But then on the women's side, I want to say there might even have been like less than 100 total. So I'm not sure. So don't quote me on that. But um, just saying to get essentially like probably 25 to 30% of, King Kong is like 30 plus venues all across the entire world. And you're talking about just in one location right there, you basically have like 30% of what that would be for just a single competition. So that is
Yeah.
it's just an impressive thing. It's not something that you're seeing in a lot of other competitions. You're not seeing, 20 women lifting or even an all women's competition in that format. So I think it's definitely cool. And then I am glad that you guys have branched into doing the regionals as well to kind of take that same, formula or the kind of just evolve it into something even bigger and build upon it. So, yeah, I guess going into, if you guys want to go into the competition a little bit, um, what were your thoughts kind of going into hosting regionals and maybe selecting equipment or when you first got the news that, Eric was approaching you guys about it? Just, I guess, kind of what was the process leading into it and sort of how the decisions were getting made, up until the actual event.
Yeah, well, the main goal for us is we want to get more people into grip. We think it's really fun and it's just more fun when there's more people. So that was sort of the main motivation over the things that we picked. Um, I think we did end up picking some pretty climber friendly implements. The crimp alone probably was a big motivating factor for a bunch of climbers who wanted to come out and just show everyone how much they could crimp. But there's a process whenever you hold a comp. You want different implements that don't test the same parts of your hand. Um, you don't want too many heavy things just so people aren't like overwinded. And and so, we ended up picking those four implements. Two of them were sort of new to GSI. So we did pick them intentionally because we thought they'd be like a really good complement to the stuff that was already on GSI. Different enough from the other implements, but accessible. And yeah, do you want to add anything?
Yeah. So, you know, in Ottawa, we have Yves Gravel, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
He's our local celebrity in both the climbing world and the grip world, right? Everyone in grip knows of him, and everyone in climbing knows of him, right? So he's our local celebrity, and he's always pushing for athletes to train on the wrist wrench. That it's a very popular, whenever people ask him about training tips, oh, how do you become a stronger climber? How do you strengthen your wrists? How do you strengthen your hand? And then he brings up the wrist wrench, right? The 2 3/8 wrist wrench. And we figured, okay, this is something that the climbing community is already aware of. This is also something that the grip community is very familiar with, right? The wrist wrench. Figured, okay, let's do the wrist wrench. Like it's very easy. It's already in GSI. It's a requirement that regionals have GSI sanctioned pieces. So that's good. The crimp, that's something new, good with climbers, but not too unfamiliar, right? We have a few other, like the tip tester, is testing your tendons a little bit. Um, you have a few pieces that also maybe the grab ball is a little bit testing of the tendons as well.
Well, there also used to be like a barrel strength. I think used to have like the stirrup. I don't know if it was ever
Oh yeah, the stirrup as well.
contested, but but yeah, that same kind of a sort of a finger, crimp position. It was at least, people were familiar with it, even if it wasn't tracked. I'd have to go back and look, or maybe I
Yeah,
couldn't even find the info. But yeah, no, it definitely is
yeah,
aside from attracting the climbers and everything. People in grip are you know what I mean, familiar with it, even if it's not contested all the time. Most of the competitors have seen stuff like that or trained on similar stuff, I'm sure. So I think it's a good
yeah,
call.
yeah. And at this time, like we had already used the crimp and Sarah's block in previous feather crush competition.
Mhm.
So Erica actually had numbers logged in the database, kind of there and ready. Um, we were just waiting, or Eric's just waiting to have more results, more numbers, for it to become more popular before actually putting it up. So we figured, okay, you know what? Let's put in regionals, um, and see what we can get, and ended up being very popular. And we have a lot of athletes coming out of regionals um, with goals to improve their crimp and their block. Like, regardless of there being any promise of those events in the future, they're still like they came out of the tournament and they just want to get better at those events. So
Hmm.
we love that. And a lot of the newcomers, like uh first timers, they even after the comp, they we offered the implements for sale at the end of the comp after we finished using them, and people bought a bunch, right? Because we had four of each at the event. So we had two platforms
Hmm.
and two warm-up stations. So we had four of each, so four wrist wrenches, four mini inch pinch, so on and so forth. So we had a lot of extras at the end. And so, we offered them up for sale at a discount, and a lot of them sold. Yeah.
Yeah, I will say I was very happy with the decision to include the wrist wrench because it was definitely having a moment. I've gone to the climbing gym lots of days, brought implements and sort of told people how they worked and tried to get people to come out to comps. The wrist wrench did not need an introduction. It was recognized by just
Hmm.
people who were there to climb. So that one was becoming very popular. Um, yeah, we had one athlete who had actually signed up for the comp and then bought a wrist wrench and didn't even realize it was in the comp. They had just heard about it and wanted
Oh,
to train on it. So wrist
yeah.
wrench, we're having a moment this year, so we were really
Yeah.
happy that we included it in the comp.
No, yeah, it's a good call, and I think Eric had it for North Americans, I believe.
Yeah.
I think the
Yeah.
wristwatch was in there as well. So yeah. It's no, it's an amazing training tool, and yeah, I always kind of viewed it as more of a training tool, but I think it's very good to see it in competition because it's definitely doing something different than rolling handles, and it's still thick bar, but it's different. It can
Hmm.
almost go into that like oddities category. Not saying like like a hub or something else that you have like your like Axel
Be
or Saxon.
special.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
it is
have,
its own thing.
yes, exactly. So it just really makes it just makes it good to have the variety, but still keep it within the oh, how do I put it? Sort of like the traditional
Yeah.
things that you're testing. You're still getting like, okay, who's the strongest at this thing that we're trying to contest? It's not like, oh, well, if we do that, then that doesn't really translate to anything. It's like, no, this is a key thing, like you mentioned with Eve train, just train on or putting out. It's like so many people have trained on it, whether they've competed or contested it at all. Um, so that would make all the events. I'm trying to think now that so you had the crimp,
So
the
so the comp was mini inch pinch.
okay mini instrument. Okay, that's the one I think I was leaving out. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wrist wrench and Sarah's block. So,
Okay. Yeah.
yeah.
Um, and then from there, I know you mentioned having two platforms and then also warm up areas. How did you decide to break those platforms up? Was it by weight class? Was it by experience level? Or how did
Well,
that
the
go?
original dream was to have one pin for the guys and one for the women. But at the end of the day, we still had like 5 times as many guys as girls. So in the end, we did have to split it up by weight class. So the women and the first 3 weight classes for guys were on one pin, and then all of the heavier guys were on the other pin. So it worked out really well. I think we had about the same number of people on each pin. It was about 15-ish, which was a good number as far as like keeping the competition moving. So for anyone else who's out there hosting comps, I would say if you have enough people, if you have like 30 people, it's really worth getting 2 pins going, just because the days can get really long if you're doing a lot of max lifts. To pull it off, you do need some volunteers. So I would say you want at least 2 people per pin. Obviously, scoring is like a very important job. So you want someone who's just writing down what people lift. And then switching the plates, honestly, if you just have another person who does that, the comp's going to go a lot faster. So that was one of the big things that we did. And then the other big thing that we did for this comp that I want to talk about is our increments for the weight. So a lot of comps that I've been to, they increment by regular amounts. So maybe, a small mini inch pinch, it'll be 1.5 kilos. And so you start at a weight and you just go up by 1.5 kilos. Last person standing, jump in. But I always found that it was a little different if you were a lighter lifter or if you were a heavier lifter, because if you were a lighter lifter, for me, it was always 5% jumps. But, for the guys who are lifting twice what I was lifting, they were looking at like 2% jumps when they got around their max, which it does take a little bit longer, right? If you have all those extra lifts on the one end. So to make it go faster, you limit it at 5% all around, everybody kind of gets a fair amount of jumps. I've seen it done in a couple different ways to try to make it fair. Like, the increments are a certain amount, but then you have the option of splitting once, which is a novel idea to sort of let you get closer to your max, but it's a lot of thinking. Like, there's a lot of opportunity to pick the wrong time to split. And then you spend a lot of energy, strategizing about when you should take it. And especially if you're in a comp that's like reverse strongman scoring, where it's just your placement, there's a lot of pressure on picking when you do that split. And it depends on what your competitors are doing. And I just don't think it's as fun to spend time stressing about, 1 or 2 pounds here or there. When the increments are just 5%, you get close to your max. You don't really have to think about skipping unless you started like super early, because if you skip one, it's like 10%. So you kind of, can warm up to where it's getting hard and just do the 5% increments. I think it works for everyone. And the other thing we did with the 5% is we just posted what the weights were going to be in advance. So we actually measured the weight of the pin and the implement and the carabiner, so it was nice and round, so that every event we did had the same weight options. So we did 5% rounded to the nearest half pound, starting at like 10 pounds, but nobody opened at 10 pounds for any of the events.
Yeah.
So we had a list and we published it in advance. So everybody who signed up to the comp could know in advance exactly what weights we were challenging. So if you wanted to think about, where am I going to be opening? Which weights am I going to be going for my max? You could think about all of that in advance. So you didn't have to do that on the fly the day of, which I think also really helped with our pace. But as someone who's gone to these comps many times, it really puts the pressure off to have these numbers in advance. So, you can think about it, you can test your maxes at home and have a really good idea. But it just eliminates all of that, last minute decision making. You can just go warm up and then lift as much as you can. So
Yeah.
I was worried that the bigger guys wouldn't be as much of a fan of the format, because, they kind of had all the options in the old format, and this was sort of limiting the weight increments they could do. But all the big guys that I talked to really liked the new format. So, maybe they agree that it's a lot of pressure having so many options close to your max, and the 5% just makes it smooth. But it did keep the pace going. So between the two platforms, the 5%, everything posted, we sort of blasted through 32 people. I don't think any of the events went more than 2 hours. We started at like 11 and we were all wrapped up 4 max lifts probably by 4 o'clock. So
Okay. Yeah. And that's a real good pace. I mean,
yeah.
especially for that kind of turnout. And um, the other thing I was going to mention for that was I'm trying to think of how to like explain, but yeah, you're talking about, so you get like 30 people at the competition
Yeah, we had
and you,
32
and,
people,
okay. Yeah.
16 of which this was their first GSI sanctioned event. So lots of new people, strong people. For sure, we're really, really happy to get new people. And I mean, we're always happy to get strong people to come out, but big turnout.
Well, yeah, and a lot of the new people, if they're not strong now, they could still get stronger. It's just going to improve. You got to show up as the first step. So it's
Mhm.
important to get those new people on the platform. And you mentioned kind of like the method of certain increments and then kind of having a split. Oh, you get one chance to do that. Well, if everybody gets one chance, that's also 30 different times. If they happen to pick that, you know what I
Yeah.
mean. So that's another thing to kind of take into consideration for anyone listening is yeah, it might be, oh, well, yeah, you can always just get that, 2.5 pound or that 1 kilo jump, and that's your split. Well, if everybody gets it, that's also like 30 times added potentially
Mhm.
that someone's plate loading or doing something. And if someone had a stopwatch sitting there and clocked that, okay, how long did it
Yeah.
take them to change those weights? Oh, we did 2.5 minutes that time or whatever. Over the course, like you said, you run into maybe not wrapping up around like 3 or 4 p.m. or something. You're there till hey, it's dark out. Yeah, nobody can do anything. We're going to bed. Like you're there all day. So definitely, there's a lot of freedom for promoters, in how they choose to do stuff like this. But yeah, I think the more people host or the more people get informed about stuff like this, it's going to take a lot of that extra thinking or the questions out of it. And I think people are going to develop just more efficient styles and more efficient ways to do it. And that sounds like what you guys have already done, with this going so well. So it'll be interesting to
Yeah,
see
yeah,
where it kind of
there's
continues.
yeah, there's a few little caveats that I kind of want to get into. It it does take a little bit of effort to find a pin and a carabiner and some little plates to make your original implement and all of that sort of base weight with, the pin, weigh an even amount. I will admit, like that took some work,
Mhm.
especially like because it was 2 pins. Um, it was like several hours. So that is a little bit of work, but I think you can get the same value if you just, weigh your pins, weigh that stuff in advance. And then, for the 5% rule, you could just have your increments go by 5%. So maybe you do the same thing we did where, you have a Excel spreadsheet, starts at 10 pounds, goes up 5%, and that can just be the weight you add. And then,
Mhm.
plus whatever the base weight is. So one way to make it a lot easier. And then I really think you do get a lot of the value just if you post what the weights are going to be. As a competitor, I think that it's great to get them in advance so that you can kind of get some of that thinking out of the way before the day of. Um, but also at the comp, we had printed them out. We made a big
Yeah.
printout with what all the weights were going to be for all the comps, for all of the events. And then what we added to that was some of the records. So we had like the world record for each of the events, posted on the same sheet. So you kind of see where it compares to the weights we were going to do, the Canadian records, the women's records. And I think that was really fun for people to be able to look at, but it's also the type of thing that would constantly get asked at other comps that we went to.
Hmm.
People would always be asking, oh, not only what's the next implement increment, but like, oh, what's the record for this? What's the record for the women? What's the Canadian record? And Eric could probably comment off the top of his head if someone was getting close to doing a record. But for the rest of us, it was really nice to have that sort of posted and entertained. Another thing that we did was we printed that list of increments on a little like mini personal scorecard, so everybody could keep track of how many attempts they had taken. Because another thing that I would always see at the other comps was people would ask Eric, who's the bottleneck for the whole event, oh, how many attempts have I done already? And so, he would pause to look that up.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, they could really just keep track of that on their own.
Yeah.
And then, you have your record because even as a competitor, like, I never use all my attempts, but when I look back at the event, sometimes I wonder like, well, what weight did I start at? And like, did I skip this or that? Just because it's a useful scale to have if you ever like compete the same event again. And so we made these little scorecards so people could track it for themselves. And like some people didn't use them. I think Eric, he's just a pro competitor, so he was like, "Do I have to fill this out? I'm obviously not going to forget anything." Um, but a lot of people found it like really useful to have. So that's a very easy thing people can do. Even if you just weigh your pins and your implements the night before,
Mhm.
you can print those out on a piece of paper so that people don't have to ask you directly about what weights are going to get contested that day.
No, that's really good. And then I like adding the like records to it, but then also filtering it down to country or different like regions because that's something that also gets I think overlooked a little bit. I've seen some people really get into it, but there is a way in the database where you can kind of go by whether it's men, women, overall. Go by basically like by country or whatever. So yeah, and I know Eric keeps some stuff on the Canada Grip Sport site as far as some Canadian records there as well. But it is interesting because I think we all kind of get caught on two things. And I'm not saying I mean I'm kind of that way too. Maybe I just block out the other stuff, but it's generally weight class records and then just overall records. And sometimes we forget that like, hey, you could still maybe like oh, I didn't get the overall record, but maybe I'm the strongest, American to do this, or I'm the strongest Canadian to hit that. So it might give somebody a little bit of an incentive, or just they're more informed as they're going into picking their jumps. That maybe oh, hey, if I pick this, then that'd be the most that anybody's ever lifted in this class. So I think the more informed the competitors are, it's never going to be a bad thing. So I really am happy you guys took that extra time, prior to it. Um, weighing the stuff out and things like that. Typically, as a promoter, that I don't say that's fairly standard. I don't know what everybody else does, but yeah, that's good. But the extra steps to um, have the increments with the records and all that, that's like an extra thing that I don't know that I've ever been to a competition that's done that. I've seen, hey, these are the jumps we're doing, but everybody's on their phone. What's the database say? Or, oh, well, that's this one. And, okay, different promotions and whatever. So, and then it turns into kind of it's not a big deal, but yeah, you're like, oh man, wouldn't it be cool just to look down and bam, there's the answer. So no, really, really cool addition
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. I think just posting them because you never know what the pin and the person's implement are going to weigh. So,
Mhm.
just every 5 pounds, is it like, oh, is it going to be 91 pounds or is it going to be 95 pounds? And, if your max is somewhere in between there, it sort of matters where it lands. So knowing that in advance, I think
And then
it's fun.
you'll have people like me that also just trail off for like 10 or 15 minutes during a competition. So even if I know exactly what the pen weighs and I'm watching it reloaded, I'll come back and it might have changed, three increments or something, and I'm like asking what it weighs anyway. But that's on me. I'm just more so messing around. But yeah, no, like I said, anytime the competitor is more informed, it just makes it more efficient and saves time, and also I think it kind of maximizes everybody's performance in some way because there's not as much of the guesswork or kind of fumbling around. So it's like, hey, well, this is what we're doing. Okay, I'm going with this weight or that weight. It's you know, and sometimes I think it can pull the best out of somebody because maybe they were going to jump a couple pounds shy and they go ahead and they take that five, maybe it's a 5% jump and it's maybe a few pounds heavier than what they were doing, and then bam, okay, they hit a PR and they lifted more because they were kind of forced to go above or beyond. It's like, well, do I lift a little bit less or a little more? And sometimes it may backfire, but there's no way to, I mean, predict the future in that sense. So yeah, I mean, sometimes you got to go for it. And I only bring that up because there was one lift at the Arnold I did this past year that I was like, that felt pretty good, but I might be done. And then I was like, well, I'll do one more jump. And then because we were getting short on time, they jumped like 20 pounds, and I was like, well, I guess I'm doing that. And I pulled it pretty easy, and I was like, oh man, like I almost didn't take that. You know what I mean? So sometimes I think just sort of in that moment, getting that little extra push, or just kind of having to decide whether, hey, am I going to play it conservative, or hey, are we going for broke? Like let's just see what happens. So
Yeah, yeah.
it's
I think
good.
it makes it just more fun to not have to make so many of those decisions. Like, you got the 20 pounds, but if you had just lifted, 10 pounds less than that, maybe you would have been a little tired, right? So
Yeah.
I think it makes it more fun to not have to worry about those details. So not to
And
make all
then,
the decisions
oh
for
no,
you.
no, it's perfectly fine. And then, is there any? I'm just trying to think of other stuff. I mean, I know we're talking about like formatting of the competition. Where
I had
was
two more little points
Oh,
about
oh no, no, no,
keeping
yeah,
the
no, no,
logo.
no, keep going because I was gonna ask like, oh, where was it at? Like, what's the venue? Just kind of set the stage, but no, yeah, go ahead and talk about
So
yes,
two
the other
other
stuff. Yep.
just little simple things is having a warm-up station. So,
Hmm.
if you don't have a warm-up station, like how are people going to get ready to go and lift? So you do need some extra implements. Maybe some of the people who are participating have copies, so asking around helps for that. But you need a warm-up platform so that the actual platforms can be reserved for lifting. And then like the final piece and just making it go is having a microphone and doing last call. So, this comp, there was a lot of, if the pin was empty for 30 seconds, that was last call, goes out on the mic, and then we move on. It also gives it like a real official feel, you're not just sort of asking around, hey, you wanna do this weight? No, there's a final call, and then you move on, and it really just keeps it going, keeps it
Who
exciting.
was who was rocking the mic as the MC?
Yeah, I was.
Okay, okay, all right.
Yeah, yeah,
I
and
didn't know if you brought in somebody special or if you're just doing it yourself. Yeah.
yeah, no, that was Andrew. Until I came around to give him enough time to eat some food. So
Yeah.
it was really busy. We tried to get a few more volunteers, and we had some cancellations at the end. So it was tight, and we were both quite busy for the day, but we had just enough. I would say you want at least two volunteers per pin.
Yeah. There were times where I was yelling out the weight, but then realized that I need to go and do that weight. I'm like, oh no, I need to do that. I don't want that to go up. I need to do that now. Yeah. No, it's
Yeah.
good.
No,
Like you,
it's easy to lose track sometimes. Like, yeah, you get caught up, and so that's why I say, like, I have a bad habit of running around hanging out with people in the middle of a competition. They'll be like, Zach, you taking this weight? I'm like, what's on the pin? Oh, it's 180. I'm
exactly.
like, oh yeah, I need
All
to get
your
over
friends
there.
come out, you're lifting weights, having a good time. It's you know, we were very happy that the comp wrapped up in like 5 hours, but I'm happy to stay out for an 8 hour day, just hanging out with
Yeah,
grip
that usually
buddies.
happens anyway. Even if the comp wraps up early, people are still doing stuff afterwards.
Oh
But
yeah, yeah. We
yeah.
were not home at the late. So
Yeah. Yeah.
So yes, doing last call for that. And was there something else? I feel like was there one more thing that you were going to add on that, or
Uh,
maybe I'm trying to remember what I was just thinking of.
the
Sorry.
one
Sorry.
the one no with the 8 hour thing, like Rachel and I were talking about this yesterday. We're thinking, okay, no, if there were four events and it's an 8 hour day, and then you give people 30 seconds for each lift, and you give them, I don't know, four attempts. Let's just say four attempts. So they get 2 minutes per event. And for over four events, they get 8 minutes. So each athlete gets 8 minutes of platform time over 8 hours.
Mhm.
That, like, to put that into perspective, is a lot of waiting around. And like it's something that I think we really have to take seriously and really consider, like, is is the comp going on too long? Do we need that second platform? Do we need a third platform? Do we need other ways to speed it up? Like, four attempts is already not a lot of attempts, right? We did six attempts, right? We were going
Mhm.
fast. We are trying to go real fast. Um, but yeah, like I think with the community having access to more of the implements, we could source more of the contested implements. Like for King Kong, for example, we probably find several thumb blasters around. we have Little Big Horn, Eric has Little Big Horn, others. Um, I think we should consider, the two platform or, just multiple platforms just in general, just to keep things moving and just have people, not be standing around for almost 8 hours of their day. Although it's fun, right? Like it's still fun to hang out, but we could be hanging out at a bar
I like hanging
after,
out at the comps.
like,
I'm happy to be there all day. I think that as long as you keep things moving and there's a good pace, nobody's going to be too upset. But there's always someone who has a dog sitter or da da da, so
Mhm.
they can't just stay and hang out at the gym for 8 hours. So keeping the pace moving, and there's lots of different things you can do to sort of keep that going.
No, I really do like it, because that is something. I mean, also, I don't want to get too much into like strategy and trail off here, but when this is a mistake I've seen people make in the past as a competitor, is they will maybe train things on different days, which I'm not saying training something on different days is a bad thing. I'm just for anyone listening in, let me get to the ending of it. It'll make sense. But they train some of this stuff on different days, and they base all their PRs off of that, and then they don't really do it, in order to see how each event is going to fatigue the next. And then they go to the competition thinking that, okay, I've never trained these 4 to 5 things or whatever it may be in the same day, but now I expect to set a record on everything. And it's just not that realistic as if you're training whatever. So I I think that
There is a little bit of an advantage to the comp taking at least a certain amount of time. Like,
yeah.
we do the naughty awards. So Andrew's got a couple of implements he picks, and we keep track of the records. And sometimes someone will come over and be like, "Oh, I want to try them all," but like it's just them, and they're here for like maybe an hour, and they try to do like 4 maxes in an hour. And I'm like, you're not gonna get very good maxes. Whereas, if each event is at least like an hour and a half, you have time to like be relatively fresh for all of these maxes.
Yeah,
There is something to dedicating 8 hours to getting these maxes that helps. So, so
for
yeah,
sure.
I
And
think like 15 people on a pin.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then for the last thing I was going to just add with that, when I was talking about people training different stuff and expecting to show up and do it. So a lot of times they'll make that mistake, or certain people will, and they have like, okay, this is this one day you focused on that lift. That's the best you've ever done. And then you now try to do that for 4 things in the same day. That's very tough to land, and you're not really conditioned for it. But also the same thing, talking about duration, I think it is good that, yeah, you don't want to like blitz yourself and try to do everything like, okay, we did all 4 events in 2 hours, and everybody's like,
Yeah.
can't even think. But then also you have to take into account if it starts to drag too long, it's like, how many times during your training leading up to the competition did you lift for 2 hours and cool down and then go back out? You didn't sit in your garage for 8 hours training. So like it's also a different thing depending on
hmm
duration, because most people's
hmm
training sessions aren't completely mapped out with the same rest periods or breaks of other competitors, or maybe they're
Yeah.
taking too little time, too long time. And then there's a lot of stuff that goes into this, even though it seems like, oh, just load it to the next thing and someone pull on it and then we'll just get the next thing. But there's a lot that goes into this, from carrying your training to the platform to deliver. When, yeah, if it's an 8 hour day, you by the time you get to that last event, you might not be doing what you were doing, during that 1 hour session in your garage when you were fresh. So, yes, I think that kind of finding a good sweet spot for time where it's not too rushed, but it doesn't also drag like with all that dead space or just unnecessarily long. So, it definitely an important thing to keep in mind for anyone promoting. But yeah, I guess the one thing I was going to ask before you guys got into that was for like the venue, like venue selection. Was it at a gym? Was it I don't know. Was it a good spot for everything? I mean, did people enjoy that? Just kind of where the competition was, and get into maybe some of the venue, and then uh, yeah, I'll just keep it with that for now. I don't want to overload. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, we're really lucky. So here in the Ottawa region, there's a climbing gym, 981, and they let us host there. It's a beautiful like little climbing gym. They have their weight area in the middle, So it's enough space that we can set up there. And we host and most people in Ottawa host. So I guess that's us and Eric have been using them to do grip comps for, I guess we could say, a couple years now. Beautiful little venue, so that's sort of where we host.
Yeah, and the like Aggie, the daughter of the owner of the gym, she's into grip sport as well, and she's won several categories already locally here, and she's very strong at grip, and so it helps when she loves it too.
What's the full name?
It's Aggie Saint Jacques.
Oh, okay, yeah. No, I was curious. You said Aggie, and I'm like, I wonder if that's Aggie Saint Jacques. But yeah, okay. I didn't know that was the like same gym or that was connection. Because yeah, she did like a little thing on the show one time for the Rolling Thunder pull-ups record.
Yeah.
That's right.
So I had her on for a short feature. So yeah, so when you said the name, I'm like, okay, Canada, Aggie, climbing, grip. Also, I'm like, I was just wondering. I didn't know you'd be like, oh, it's Aggie Williams, and I'm like, oh, I'm an idiot. But yeah,
I think it was it at the last King Kong? I think it was before King Kong started. She did her attempt for the Rolling Thunder pull-up.
Which she crushed.
Yeah. I think she had more in her that she could have done, but she wasn't training for it or anything. But yeah, it really helps that because she's, her family runs the gym, that she loves letting us use the gym for this sport. It's just perfect, right? And Eric has been using the gym as well.
Yeah, I think it's a goal of the owners of the gym to be a community hub, and so to host events like this. Whenever we go there, if there are people that are there climbing, they're entertained, they're interested. So I think it's a really good fit having it at a climbing gym. So we're very lucky that they let us host, and that they're set up to host, because not every climbing gym would have like a space where you can have people watch. But we're really lucky that they support our events over there.
All right, this is going to be just a rookie question on my part here, because I'm not a climber. You're talking about like a weight area in the middle, kind of what you guys are using. Do most climbing gyms have weight training with them, or is that something maybe unique to this gym? I'm sorry for all of the climbers out there that are like, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about.
They all do. I think that any half-decent climbing gym will. Sometimes you'll get very, very small climbing gyms that just might not have the space for it. But I think for most of them, if the proposition is, have a membership here, this is your gym, having a weight space is just such a important part of that. So I can't really remember the last time. I can think of maybe one in Toronto that didn't have a weightlifting area, but they usually do.
Okay, and then like I said, I never necessarily like going like, oh, line by line, and this person lifted this. But if you could think of certain lifts that occurred, or I don't know if there's any like big moments. Sometimes there's like, oh, somebody missed a weight twice and then they came back and got it. Or, is there anything that kind of stands out in your guys' memory throughout that competition?
Okay, there was one. So we had a lot of new people and a lot of strong new people. One person that stands out is William. So he was like the fourth lightest guy at the event. He placed sixth overall. He crushed his category. So going into the last event, which was the crimp, he had won every other implement, and he goes up for his very first lift on the crimp, and he brings it up to the bar maybe like 1 centimeter below, and then but doesn't get it. So we're all like, this brew, and we're sitting there like nobody wants to see this happen. He's been crushing it, and then if he didn't get this lift, he would zero. And we were doing percentage-based scoring, so it would have been devastating. So everybody was on the and one other deal. So he's lifting in his shoes, and then he had taken his shoes off for the crimp. Crimp's the heavy one. I guess he was just getting serious. So he'd taken his shoes off, and then being like this short to lifting the crimp up, I was like, oh no, like did he need the extra height? And so we're all just like on the edge of our seat, and he did like he lifted it up after that. He lifted it to like 13 inches, just I think to prove like, wait, no, I know what I'm doing here. And he ended up crimping, I should know the actual number, but a good 20, 25 pounds more than that. So
Okay.
he knew what he was doing and he opened right. He just put us all on the edge of our seat for this first lift. So that was very memorable. And also just shout out new guy, pound for pound, like incredible lifts. Oh, okay. There's a lot of people to shout out. I'll let Andrew do some shout outs.
Yeah, so overall, like I think I have to give a shout out to the new athletes who came out from the Toronto area. So in Ottawa, when Eric usually hosts a local comp, there'll be a lot of the Ottawa folks who come out like ourselves here, and we all know each other, and it's always the same people, right? It's always the same
Mhm.
folks who come out. Um, this time around, we have a whole crew that came down from Toronto, and they're all friends, and they're all loving the grip stuff, and together, like all of them did so well. Like everyone was impressed. The Ottawa regulars were kind of intimidated. Like I was talking to some of them, and they were worried that they weren't gonna podium at all. They're gonna typically they're used to podiuming when Eric hosted local comps, but now they're gonna not podium. They were so worried, but
Which is really saying something because we actually contested all of the GSI weight classes.
Mhm.
So, usually at a local comp, maybe there'll be like three classes, a lot of people lumped together,
Yeah.
but even contesting every single one, the sort of classes in the middle all had like six or more guys. So competition was pretty fierce.
No, that's a good thing too, because yeah, sometimes some of the divisions get a little thinner, and yeah, sometimes there's people that are almost by themselves, or there's only two people on the podium, and it just doesn't. Even if that person is that good, because sometimes you'll have a lone lifter that's like, it doesn't matter who showed up, they were going to win, or it doesn't matter who else showed up, those people were going to be first and second. That happens sometimes, but there's also that case where it's like, if like three people down the road came over here, they probably would have bumped you off the podium. So it is always nice to sort of have that, just depth in the division to where, whatever you're doing or competing, at least it just means a little bit more, in my opinion, when you have that kind of, just the fullness in the division, because you know that you kind of achieve something, if you beat
Yeah.
five people, well, what if you beat
Oh
10
yeah.
people in your
You
class,
don't have to preach to me, okay? My dream is to have six deep in the women's 52 kilo class, okay? I'm working on it.
Okay.
I'm working on it for years.
How many did you have for this one in that class? Was it
Two.
okay, two?
We always
Yeah.
have two.
Okay.
Me and my
Is
one
that the
girlfriend.
I,
Yeah,
I
we
don't I
always
don't want to
go
mess
at
this
two
up.
then.
Is that the lowest class offered? I'm not sure. I should know
No,
that,
it's
right?
not. So there's also the
There's like a
47.
49. Oh, 47. Okay. I was just say 49 or
47,
47.
yeah.
Okay.
So, I used to be in the 47, and it's much more fun
Yeah.
to
Okay,
lose to
47.
Amina in the 52 than in the 47. So I'm so happy to have somebody that I can compete with. It just, if you are alone in the category, sometimes it's not quite as fun. And
Mhm.
that said, I'm so happy that people showed up for all of the guys' weight classes. We made a lot of trophies, and so I was worried, but we got new people out in from the smallest to the biggest men's categories. So thanks for everyone for showing up.
Yeah. No, that is another aspect of promotion. And I know this, we're not going as much over line by line, play by play action, which is how a lot of recaps go. But there's a lot of just stuff in here behind the scenes of promotion and competition, in general. Um, when me and Ben Helms did Heavy Hands, we we were like, I mean, depending on who shows up or how many, like we got to have trophies. So like we went pretty hard on like having some like big steel rolling handles welded up on like metal plates with like plaques and stuff, and but for every weight class. Now, that competition is about 2 years old at this point. So it's not like a secret how many people showed up and who did what and who placed what. I've already covered it on the show. But I may or may not have had about 20 of those steel trophies just hanging out in my house back in North Carolina before I moved that I had to get rid of because
Yeah,
people didn't
well,
show up. And we just, we didn't mind like taking the loss, but looking back at it, it was like excessive. We could have just merged a couple things and
You know
called it a day.
what? Okay, so like I don't know how many hours Andrew put in, but I know I personally put in about 12 hours doing these trophies,
Mhm.
which, you know, before the event, I was a little bit more annoyed about it because I knew we weren't gonna have that many women. So like there were
Mhm.
9 classes, 3 trophies each for the guys and for the girls. And you know, at the end of the day, I wish that we had, 27 women showing up, but
Mhm.
knowing that we only had a few signed up so far, it did make it a little bit of a grind to put them all together. But I'm hoping they'll be used for something. But
Oh no,
I would
yeah.
say at after the event, I was happy that we had gone through and made them all because the people that got them appreciated them, and they do look good on the table when you've got
Mhm.
them, when you've got the big spread.
Yeah, no, it's tricky. I know that I even think for like nationals, we had some Mike Saffel did a lot of the medals, and when he was messing with that, there was like, okay, well, these are the people that are signed up. So he was going directly by who signed up, but their weight class can still shift if they miss weight or they don't cut properly. So it was like, okay, well, we have this, we got to switch these weight classes. So he was like, shuffling around a bunch of the medals, trying to get just make sure the medals were fine. There was plenty of medals. So it wasn't like anyone's going to like go home without one. It was just a matter of, people shifting weight classes, and it was kind of like throwing off the count for the like who gets what. But yeah, these are just things that if anybody's jumping into promoting or wants to run an event and do all this, that um, I guess I would say do it right because that's kind of an opinion. But if you want to put on a successful competition, yes, generally it's good to do the stuff like this where you're mapping so much out beforehand. You are taking into account maybe venue, food, signups, pricing. Just there's a lot more that goes into it than just sort of show up and wing it. If you want it to go well, which we've seen some people do before, but yeah, and that's what I feel like we're kind of really getting into on this episode is if somebody is maybe I'll say worried about hosting, but if they're a little hesitant, there's a lot of information out there. You can, I mean, listen to any of these recaps or, especially this episode right now where it's almost hitting more of the promotion side and not so much just result, result, result. So I think it's also just educational that we're covering some of this stuff. And I hope that people that are getting ready to compete maybe, take some ideas from it or take some of the principles and it can just improve competitions in general for everybody. So no, I appreciate you guys kind of going into detail about this stuff. Um, So 32 overall competitors. Um, you don't have to go like all out for like weight classes and who did what. I know we talked about a little, some highlights there. Um, but I have to at least get you guys to break down the overall winners because that would be the regional champs, which
I
um,
guess so. So I
we
mean, okay, the regional champs, typically the top three, they're gonna be, the strongest out of the biggest guys that showed up, which,
mhm,
is great for the big guys, but like, you know, is it more important than like the lower weight categories? I don't know. So we didn't announce on the day of. We had just gone
okay.
through the weight classes. Um,
We
but
didn't have any separate trophies
we didn't
for
have an overall trophy.
Okay.
Um, but it was Eric.
Yeah.
Oh,
it.
big
Yeah.
surprise. And it was Coco on the women's side as
Mhm.
the champions. Um, but they're all posted. If you want to see, you can compare yourself with all the classes around you, however you want to split it. There's lots
Mhm.
of different ways to look at it. But we left that sort of for people to
Oh no, it's good. Yeah, I just want people to like know, like since we are covering like the regional thing, like, oh, well,
That's
well,
true.
who won? Because they're gonna be
Mm.
like, I listened to the whole thing, and there's a lot of stuff about competitions and da, 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 but like, I don't even know who won. So like, yeah, we don't have to go like every single lift what they did, but yeah, with Corinne and Eric winning that, and I know that information's been put out, it's known, but I just wanted to mention it because if I don't, someone will probably like the first 10 seconds it gets uploaded, they'll, hey, you didn't tell who won, or we already
You
know who
didn't give
won.
Eric
Why are you
enough shout
bothering?
outs in this video.
So,
Yeah, yeah,
um,
no, Eric had incredible lifts. He did win. He did really well. You know, I'm not bashing on the big guys. It typically tends to be the big guys who win overall. And when you do pound for pound, it tends to be someone who's smaller, and it's sort of just
mhm.
however you cut it up. So we didn't put a lot of emphasis on just like the overall winners.
How
Um,
was the competition for Corinne as far as some of the female competitors? Because I'm not as familiar with that area and everything. So, were there some female lifters that came in that maybe gave her a run for her money, or what was that kind of like on that side?
so we only had 7 women compete.
Hmm.
So Coco usually competes in the 63 kilo
Hmm.
category. She's a little bit light this time because she's getting ready to compete in the 60 kilo in just a few weeks. But there was Kathy, who's a regular, comes out. She's
Hmm.
she's a heavyweight lifter.
Is that
She
Kathy
would
Facey, right?
Yes,
Yep.
yes.
Okay. Yep. Just double checking.
She would have been really, really close to Coco, I think. Um, yeah, she would have been close, and then everyone else was like 57 kilos below. We had a new person who had showed up for the first time in the 57 category, and she did quite well. Um, but yeah, she had just
Yeah.
shown up for the first time, so it wasn't quite as close. I'd have to pull up the numbers to see
Okay.
like, how close it was, but overall, there were only 7 of us, so
Okay.
a little
Yeah.
bit.
Well, that's just me being like a fan of the sport. I'm just kind of like, I want to kind of know, like, was it like, okay, Corinne did this, and then it was like, like she was kind of just in her own world the whole day, not paying attention, or is it like, oh, hey, like Corinne, you better not miss that lift because if you mess up here, like something could change. So, like I
Yeah,
said, that's just me being a fan of the sport and hearing about these competitions. So,
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I think we had a few other strong women locally here who unfortunately like had to cancel last minute, couldn't make
mhm.
it.
Yeah, I
Uh,
think if Aggie had been able to make it, the competition would have been more steep for
Oh yeah,
Coco.
yeah,
But
Andy would be 63, right?
that's what she competed in before. So
Yeah.
yeah. I think she's. I just did the rankings episode like recently. I think she's top ranked at 63. So I think she's ranked number one currently for the North American rankings at least. Um, but yeah, no, like I said, I'm just curious. Like I said, I'm always trying to get info on everything like that, so I can kind of picture it. And it also helps me in the future because if I kind of hear some of these other names or some things mentioned, I can, I have a pretty good memory, so I'll always kind of like, oh, hey, yeah, that one recap I was talking about, that I heard that's where I heard that name. So, um, yeah. From that, is there anything else? I guess maybe. I'm trying to think like sponsor wise or maybe anyone else to give a shout out to. I know the new competitors that came out, obviously, but is there anybody special that maybe wasn't competing but was also like, hey, they were our plate loaders, or I don't know, just anybody that you want to thank or um, shout out or any other details you'd like to add?
I mean, we always have a lot of people to thank.
Mhm.
Um, like the volunteers, the gym itself, Block 981, the spectators who were curious. Like the way that the gym was set up, the lifting platforms were in the middle of the gym in the weight area, and the climbing was around. And so you have patrons of the gym, like the climbers, on looking onto what's happening there, what's going on, like what's all the
Mhm.
excitement. Because I was on the microphone yelling, just yelling all day. I was losing my voice by the end of the day. It was so much excitement that all the onlookers were curious, and some of them asked questions like, hey, what is this sport? I've never seen this sport before. Like, it looks fun. Like, how do we come try it? Is when's the next event? And so there's that aspect of as well where it's so open, it's so friendly, so accessible that anyone can kind of see what's happening and ask questions and all that. our volunteers for sure. Um, we took some of them out for an appreciation dinner after the event because we really do recognize the amount of work and focus they needed to be in the zone that day and um, we're always a fan of recognizing people for their contributions and acknowledging their help. Um, for the next comp for sure, I think we'll get more volunteers. We'll do a call out for more volunteers, but at the same time, like a lot of these volunteers also want to compete, right?
Mhm.
Some of them
Yeah, yeah.
like so it's hard for them to volunteer and to compete. And so we go to some of our friends who are not as into grip and this past time we had one friend who came out he's not so much into grip and we figured he'd be a good volunteer.
Yeah. After the comp, he's like, "Whoa, man, that looked fun." So,
Yeah, so now he wants to be a competitor. So like for the next time, it'll be hard to get him to be a volunteer because he'll be competing. So but that's okay. This could be like our gateway into attracting more people into the sport. Um, Eric is definitely someone we're always very grateful for helping answer a lot of questions related to GSI, for any issues or suggestions we have with the database. Um, Eric's is always very supportive, and we're glad he's here. And throwback to the very beginning of how we got into this when we went to, I think, Canadian Nationals in 23. Yeah, it was 23 Canadian Nationals. Eric hosted in Ottawa. That was our first grip comp. And we enjoyed the comp so much. And we asked Eric, hey, um, can anyone host a comp?
Mhm.
And he said, yeah, anyone can host. Like, you guys can host. Like, oh, we can host. How do we host? Oh, it's just you pick your events and you have a venue and you get sanctioned by GSI and the results get posted online. Like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
that's it. It's like, yeah, that's it. There's nothing to it. And we thought there was this whole big thing. And
I,
yeah,
I think the part of the story there too is that Andrew actually already had some of this stuff, but before we went to the comp that Eric had hosted, he didn't use it. So it's stuff that we had sort of had for years that I always mocked Andrew about because I'm like, why do you have this stuff? Like, if you have a hub and you don't train on it, it's just like a very random piece of equipment that you have to carry around when you move. So,
yeah. Before Nemesis, I had bought a lot of grip
yeah, he's a bit of a
things.
gear guy, so
I
he'll
just
collect.
I will collect.
And
I want to collect all the different sizes and all different brands, and I have all these grip things. Uh,
meanwhile, I've been, just mocking him for years because I think it's so ridiculous to have equipment that you're not using. But after we did that comp, and I was like, oh, I bet I could find a whole bunch of women that would come out and enjoy this. I was like, oh my goodness, and we'll actually use all that junk you've been collecting for years. But my heart has been turned around. It's not junk, it's very useful. And it
yeah,
gets used now.
yeah.
Okay, so from I guess going from the promotion side of it and all that, some other stuff I wanted to ask you guys was for I guess I'll split this into two things. So um, next goals that you're kind of working towards on the promotion side, and if it's like details you don't want to disclose yet, like hey, we're playing in a big competition, I can't tell you. That's fine. You could just kind of leave us hanging on that. And then also just personal grip goals. It could be something that you're working on. Hey, I want to get to this spot, or hey, I kind of want to do this sort of thing. This is what I'm training. So from a promoter standpoint and hosting, what's kind of next or any goals there? And then also individually for your own lifting or training, is there anything that you're looking forward to? I guess you're gunning for, or you're looking to get knocked off your list.
I mean, I think for organizing, the big thing is getting more people out. So,
Mhm.
this year we only did one Feather Crush, and after we only got 7 people at regionals or 7 women at regionals, next year we're gonna have a 3-part series for Feather Crush. So, at least anybody who's in the Ottawa area wants to come out, try it, lift. We're gonna have yeah, 3 events. So I'm really hoping that we get more women who come out and come out regularly and maybe have enough fun that they're willing to lift in front of the guys. So we'll see at the end of the year at next King Kong. Obviously, we'll host another big event. There'll be something for the guys, but it's not official yet. And I think the goal there is still just, host an even bigger event, get lots of people out and have fun.
Yeah.
Okay. And then anything you want to add to that, Andrew, or you're gonna jump in on
Um,
the
I
lifting
I
goals?
always have wild ideas, right?
Okay.
Like
Okay. Yeah.
uh, Rachel is actually she keeps me in check
Hmm.
The
because
voice of
my
reason.
ideas are just way too wild, and she's like, "Oh, Andrew, that's not realistic. That's just crazy." You know, like I go crazy on like inventing new stuff. That's fine. But when it comes down to like hosting and promoting things, we have to be realistic. We have to be professional, and we can't rush it, right?
Mhm.
So we want to do it right. We want to attract new people. It takes time for people to feel comfortable in the sport. Um, one thing we've noticed when we're recruiting more people into the sport is surprisingly, competition is one of those ways to actually attract people. So,
Mhm.
you can invite people over to your basement and have them try some grip stuff, right? They might be interested, they might not. Oh yeah, it's kind of cool, but it's more like a fitness training session. It's not really okay.
Mhm.
You can't really see the sport. But if you get them to come out to a competition and they're lifting, they're on the platform, they're under pressure to perform, and they actually perform, they'll realize that, oh wow, they can actually do well in this sport, and all the people are so friendly, and it's just a
I think
party
comps
over.
are just so fun. Like once you come out to one comp, you
Yeah.
realize this is fun. I want to do it again, but I want to be better at it. So
Mhm.
then you're hooked.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so, the goal is, yeah, exactly as Rachel said, like host more events of different calibers and attract more people. Like we always try to support Eric as well locally here, which like whatever comp he's hosting, we always try to donate door prizes, help bring extra implements for warm up stations. We try to support wherever possible, just to make it easier for new athletes to come and try the sport. In terms of training goals, I mean, Rachel will have more than me because I don't really have goals. I'm more of the wild, like I don't even write things down. Like I don't write my numbers
Mhm.
down. Like sometimes I go up to a platform and I'm like, I don't know what my max is, but it's probably somewhere around here. Um, I just kind of like I usually just improvise. Um, I think because I work with my hands enough that there's a certain level of grip strength that I maintain. So I'm not too worried about losing progress on my grip strength. I think over time I'm getting stronger and stronger. It's not as fast as uh, I would like. But the flip side is I get to contribute some of my time towards making grip tools, right, for other people. Um,
Mhm.
you know, help organize events, do these other grip related things besides training um, that has an impact. So I like that. I don't mind doing all those other things. Yeah. But if I had to pick one thing to be good at, I'd say rolling handles. I really like the thick rolling handles or anything like
Mhm.
thick bar.
Mhm.
Um, I think I'm pretty good with pinches. I'm terrible at vertical, terrible at hubs and key pinches, just terrible. Terrible at grippers. I'm actually terrible at a lot of things. But regardless, I still enjoy them all. I still, I come out to every competition and I tinker around. But yeah, if I had to pick, I'd say, rolling handles would be my favorite. Yeah.
Yeah. Right now I'm really thinking about the hub because it's probably the only one in King Kong that I like. Um,
Okay.
so that's sort of my focus right now.
The strict hub though.
Well, there's no
I was just say,
freestyle.
which way do you prefer for
I only
freestyle?
do strict. There's these hands, they don't wrap around a hub.
Mhm.
There's no way. So it's just strict. So, there'll be that at King Kong and then then we're gonna do strict at Feather Crush in January. So those are sort of the next two. But actually I'm really looking forward to doing the wrist wrench because I had sprained my wrist, so I couldn't actually do it at regionals. So I did it with my left hand and I have a pretty big split left right. So
Mhm.
I'm really looking forward to doing that one again. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I always like to hear what people got going on, training wise and everything. But with us focusing on the promotion side of it as well, and like Andrew, is a good point you mentioned too, where um, I guess I don't even think about it sometimes because everything is, at least in my brain, I'm pretty heavy. I'm always emphasizing sort of competitions or what a lifter's done or what they're doing, and there's obviously something beyond that. Like, I mean, I've had several guests on the show, whether it be like Richard Soren, maybe, okay, coming up with the idea of the blob back then to, okay, it turns into something else. So, like, there's ways to contribute beyond lifting, you know what I mean? So I think it's important that you bring that up because um, sometimes I think as competitors or even hosts, sometimes we get trapped in this thing where it's like, well, I have to be the best competitor, best lifter, and it's more weight on this, more weight on that, and climb this list. And there's really a lot of other ways to get involved in the sport, or there's other ways that you can contribute aside from, chasing
Yeah.
numbers. So I think that's
One of the
at least
things
that's something
that
that
I
stood
was
out to me.
one of the things that I was most looking forward to was announcing the winners and not being the winner. Because around here, usually Eric's the host, and
Hmm.
it always ends up, and the overall winner is me. And then I think we had Trey host one, and he won that one. So we're looking forward to hosting and not winning, just to
Hmm.
switch it up a bit.
Yeah, no, everybody you named, I mean, are just phenomenal lifters up there, and it's also good too that and I've already mentioned this before, but in past episodes, is with Eric. I mean, being up there, like I said, I'm not trying to like lump all of Canada together, like, oh, Eric's the only person hosting. But in the past, Eric's probably hosted more competitions than anybody. But then with you guys also being in that, a similar area and contributing like that, I know Trey is also a person that really jumped into the sport and not only was very strong, but then I mentioned it to him, hey, he took it upon himself to kind of contribute by hosting and kind of wanting to get into that side of things. So it it does make it, a lot better for you guys there where it's not like, well, Eric's the only one hosting. We just show up and lift. We show up and lift. And then everybody's relying on him. Like, should he not host? Like, where are we going to go? It's like, well, you guys could host, Trey might host. It's nice to have that sort of network build up to where there's options. So, and that wouldn't be
Yeah,
possible if it wasn't for, taking those extra steps to promote. So,
yeah, it's super important, I think, for different people to promote. Like Trey's in Montreal, so hosting some events over there, it just makes it so much more convenient for new people like who live in Montreal to come out because Ottawa might be a little bit far for them. So we're hoping to get people hosting in like a number of cities. Um, but shout out to Trey. The two platform idea did come from his nationals event. So at
mhm.
nationals, he did Andrew's axle and the Iron Mine axle.
Yeah.
Guys did Andrews, and the women did the normal one. And when he was doing that, there were effectively two platforms for the men and the women, and, and he was just running back and forth between them, being the judge. But just having the two of them made the event go so much faster, and it was quite entertaining because the lifts were just closer together. The
Mhm.
the setup and whatnot overlapped, and I was like, well, this is great. Why don't we always do this? So shout out to Trey for inspiring that one.
Yeah, we've seen that used a little bit more. I know like Greenville Grab has done two platforms, or they've even done where they might split it, but it's not split where like it's the same thing. It's like, oh, well, once maybe some of the women or lighter weight men fall off on this one, start getting your warm-ups in on the second platform, and then they're almost starting to take attempts over here as long as they have the personnel to judge. So it's almost like a different event is already beginning over here. Now you don't want to, you have to time it to where you're not like, hey, this person's still lifting over here and you just passed their opener. So that's me kind of exaggerating, but
Oh,
but Greenville Grab, so they've kind of done that. So we've seen similar stuff, or I've at least seen different ways. So although people might be running two platforms, like you mentioned, that was like, okay, separate bars, still kind of the same event. For this, it was like identical, pretty much identical with the warm up areas to match. And then Greenville Grab, they're kind of like, oh, well, some people are still kind of wrapping this up, but we can go ahead and get this next thing rolling. And there's a little bit of it's kind of layered, but there's just a lot of different ways to do it. So even if someone is running two platforms, you could split it by, weight classes or ability, experience level, or there's just so many things out there. So I'm just, like I said, glad you guys are hosting, promoting, and doing it effectively and putting this stuff out. So hopefully it'll impact and change other competitions here in the future. And I just think the sport is in a really good spot. I think there's a lot of momentum, a lot of big competitions, a lot of new promoters. I'm probably going to do a end of the year type thing. I don't want to get ahead of myself because we're only in October, but I'm going to do something towards the end of the year because I think there's probably been more Grip Sport International competitions this year. I mean, more competitions, more competitors than any year previously. I think the sport is really like still climbing, and it's
yeah.
due to events like this, and it's due to people taking on that extra responsibility to host. And if they host effectively, well, then more people come back. And I really think that that's why we're seeing such a big turnout this year. There's some things that have kind of shifted that have really the introduction of regionals, a little more recognition for some of that stuff. It's got promoters kind of hyped up. It's got the lifters hyped up, and new lifters finding out about the sport. There's just a lot going on. So yeah, really appreciate you guys coming on the show and kind of just giving the insight and just talking about the structuring and behind the scenes stuff or prepping a competition and just the execution of it. That's something that really, I mean, it could almost be its own episode for the show, not just a recap, but it could almost be,
Yeah.
hey, how do you promote? And then have other promoters kind of give tips like this. So maybe I'll do something like that in the future, but this was almost that episode. You know what I mean? There's so much that was
Yeah,
put out.
yeah. I
So
mean that's what we really wanted to talk about. We'd spend a lot of time thinking about these things. Um, one, I hope this isn't too late in the episode, but one other thing
no,
that
no,
we
no,
thought a lot
no.
about was scoring. Um, what we had found that there's a lot of ties, especially, when you have like a lot of weight categories and not necessarily a lot of people in the weight categories.
Hmm.
Sometimes the ranking score results in a lot of ties. If you have two people in a weight category and they're either going to get one or two, right? No matter
Yeah.
what. And
Yep.
so it's sort of prone to ties. So we really thought that we were like, okay, well, we'll do percentage based scoring because that'll reduce the number of ties. And then if that ties, we can do overall weight. And if that ties, then we'll have a sudden death key pinch, well, not necessarily key pinch, but a hold for
Hmm.
time. And
Yeah.
I thought like that would be the most fun way to break a tie. So we had some door prizes that we were going to use for a tiebreaker. But the thing is, when you use the percentage based scoring, you don't get ties. So
Mm.
it really
Yeah.
was a lot easier that way. But yeah, just another thing that we sort of thought about, and sort of on that note, putting the results into our score spreadsheet throughout the day meant that like we had the results almost right away. So that was another
Yeah.
sort of
No, for sure.
fun
Yeah. You
thing.
pretty
I
much have
mean,
it like real time update.
yeah, I mean, we weren't like showing people what the results were as we went, but once all the lifting ends, to have the numbers almost right away,
Mhm.
it just keeps the flow going, keeps it exciting. So That
For
helps a
sure.
lot. And that
Oh
all comes
yeah.
down to having volunteers. When you're
Oh yeah.
trying to pull this off as a single person, you're just gonna have to have like 20 minutes at the end of the comp where you write it all down. Um,
Yeah.
so
And I've seen that happen. I maybe am guilty of maybe something like that, or maybe people have saved me before with the spreadsheet a couple times because yeah, don't leave that up to me. It'll run way long at that point. But no, like I said, I appreciate you guys doing something like it. If there's anything else you have to add, anything else you'd like to mention, feel free. But if not, I mean, that is pretty in depth on the competition as far as like the structure of it, location, all that. So I think it's really useful information, and I appreciate you guys coming on and doing this. And yeah, but if you guys have anything else to add, I don't want to cut anybody off. So anything to add, go ahead. If not, we could pretty much kind of get ready to wrap up, probably, I would say.
yeah.
But
I would just say if anybody has questions about hosting or, wants to talk further, reach out to Nemesis Grips. So yeah, we'd be happy
okay,
to
yeah.
assist with people.
Yeah, and you
Yeah,
guys are, I mean, whether it be website, Instagram, there's probably some other stuff, but yeah, there's a lot of good stuff out there. And I'll go ahead and I'll throw I can throw like the links or something in the description and everything with that too. So
yeah,
no problem there. And that'll all be like tagged whenever I put everything up too. So but yeah, so I'll make sure to get that out there so people aren't confused and they know where to go. But yeah, no, thanks again, and I look forward to not only what you guys are lifting or what you're putting out, and then also promoting, especially with. I know North America's going to be in the U.S. Next time around, but just saying with some of these bigger competitions and myself, I mean, I'm in Ohio. I'm not too far from Canada, in some ways. So I'm eventually going to have to get up there to Eric's and check out the gym in person, and then hopefully tie that in with the competition or something. So yeah, I'm not opposed to coming up there and competing in something. So yeah,
awesome.
just looking forward to seeing what you guys are going to be doing in the future, regardless of what lane that's in. So,
Awesome. Well, thanks for hosting us, Zach.
oh, yep, no problem. Yep, thank
Yeah,
you
thank you
guys.
so much.